Okay, well, I guess we'll start, right? So, good morning, welcome. This is V4.JS. Very exciting for me because, the project itself lost a little traction maybe, but actually only on the surface because under the hood there was a lot of development going on, and well, this all like peaked to this Node festival here. So what we're going to use today is like a pre-release version. You are all like A/B testers today, and I hesitated a little. If we should throw this beta version at you, but then I thought, well, the before group does it for years now with VL, right? So we can do this today with that version as well. Okay, so well, my name is Matthias Tonner. I'm like the project maintainer of V4.JS. It's already 6 years old now, the project, and it's well, slowly and steadily evolving. I'm doing this in my spare time, but yeah, it's evolving. David, want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm David, and I also work with V4.JS since the beginning, and recently had the chance to, in connection with my master thesis, I set some time free to work on some WebGL related libraries for V4.JS, and yeah, and now I'm just supporting the workshop a little bit, but later this will be a special topic in the other workshop.
In the afternoon,
you know, yeah.
Okay. So what's the plan for today? We are like first we're going to install and run V4.JS, or yeah, V4.JS in Node.js, and see how this works out. It should be a pretty smooth process. I hope so. Well, after that we are going to do like 4 examples. At first we're talking about the basic concepts and what's different between V4 and V4.JS, and what we can do in the browser, which we cannot do with V4.JS, and the other way around. The second example will be about integrating V4.JS in an existing website, which is obviously a common use case. Then we go over to a really small web application where we do something and store and read something from a database. And finally, we will do what actually the title of this workshop, which is like letting V4.JS communicate with V4, because that's a pretty valid use case actually, to use V4.JS, this browser technology, to build a web interface, for example, for your big scale V4 applications. And finally, we'll wrap things up and talk about when we should not use V4.JS, because there are a lot of reasons not to use it, and yeah, I think you should know it. Okay, well, maybe also for those who actually don't know what V4.JS is, there's this website, v4.js.com, and basically it's all true, which is there, but there are a lot of new features as well now in this pre-release version we are using today. But the main concept, or the basic concept, is that we took the programming language V4 and basically re-implemented it in JavaScript. So there's no automatic transition or conversion from V4 nodes to V4.JS. It's all really started from scratch. And the one common thing is this programming language, this visual programming language. So if you want to distinguish between like the runtime environment and the programming language, so we took this part and re-implemented it in the browser. So in JavaScript. So this allows us to do patching in the browser and to create WebGL animations, canvas animation, and a lot more in the browser. Okay. Okay. So the guys who came, have you installed Node.js on your computers? Okay. So now it's a good time. Just go to nodejs.org and please install the version 6, the LTS version. Okay.
Everyone who installed it already can theoretically proceed also with
Yeah.
the
So
next thing. Or
yeah. What we're going to do now is we will just set up some folder on your hard drive where we have this workshop data there, and we will download V4.js itself, and we will download the workshop examples, and they are both on GitHub. So you can either clone it if you're a Git user, or you can, like here, download a zip file with this clone or download button. Okay. So I will leave this.
kurze Frage, hat jemand einen leeren USB-Stick oder einen is there a USB-Stick that we can use because we are lacking of USB-Stick that we could distribute. Ja, vielleicht das dann. Wenn der verloren geht, ist wenigstens nur das Stick verloren geht.
Aber jetzt vielleicht noch nimmer mehr Ding.
Achso, ja.
Wahrscheinlich ein bisschen aktueller.
Ich glaube, da ist noch gerade Windows drauf.
Okay, super.
Yeah, in theory it might work, but I've never tested it. So it's only tested with the LTS version. Well, in theory it might work, but yeah. So if you have a chance to like quickly uninstall the old one, the newer one, and maybe I'm not sure if you or if there's a way to run a specific version of Node. I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, I have no
Okay.
I tried and then
Yeah.
how long is this GitHub actually online? This repository?
Like yesterday at 2 a.m. Yeah.
Because I was searching for it all the time when you announced the workshop.
Yeah, it was a separate branch, development branch, and I only merged it yesterday for today. So I can format this pen drive. Oh, sorry.
I think it's the win install stuff, no?
Okay.
Yeah, I can format it. Yeah, it's yeah, format.
Can I?
Yeah.
Huh?
As fat 32.
So-
It's no problem.
Ah, okay. Let's see.
Otherwise, if you have format,
I have already made a stick.
Ah, that's great. Okay. Ah, Mist, genau. Das
Kannst du nochmal formatieren?
Nodenmodule dabei sind irgendwie.
Ah, Vielleicht kannst du das npm install schon zeigen.
Ja, wird noch ein bisschen zusammen. Ja.
Is the internet okay with downloading so many people?
Maybe you can download files from VVVV server.
Sorry?
Ah, yeah, that's server.
Maybe you can download files on VVVV server.
There's a server in the network.
Yeah, does it work now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
how can you access the server?
Yes, 172. .60.
It's like 16, 16, 16, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. 172, 16, 16, 16. And slash node oder so?
Yes.
Aha.
No, that's right.
Okay.
Ah, yeah, that was my problem also. Someone know if there's a
It's also a no.
Only Node?
node?
Yeah.
Node?
Yeah.
Ah, okay, great. So let's do it that way.
Workshop data.
Okay. So maybe I'm doing this. Has anyone worked with the previous version of V4.js already? Okay. Good, good, good. Cool. So, okay, let's do this.
If someone have questions like didn't get a link or something like that, then just tell it. Like for example, when the Node, do you everyone have installed a Node already? Node.js? Okay.
So what you can do is try when you launch your command line to just do node -v and see if that works. Then you're good, actually.
But you need to also show the npm. So yeah,
Yeah.
next step now when the folder is there.
Okay, so we. Okay, no, not right. Was war die Adresse nochmal? 127.
Ja, 172 172 16 16 16.
Yeah.
Follow you with the command line.
Sorry?
I did not follow you with the command line. I don't know what.
Okay.
Yeah.
Node-V gives you the install version.
Move it to the right because it's
Sorry.
Oh.
Okay. Oh man. Sollen wir durchschauen? Wir haben es an.
Ja. Maybe you can show already how to navigate to the folder of where the
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So how are we with the downloads? Is it painful with the internet or is it okay? Are you good? Okay, okay, okay. Well, okay, so after we have this like basic structure, I renamed it to something like this after unzipping it. We can launch our command line tool and navigate there with like I have this on C VVVV.JS workshop, so I'm going there. Wie bitte?
Just telling if someone doesn't
Ach so.
know how to use the command line.
Okay. Just hit the start button, sorry, and type cmd this will give you the. Don't launch the Node.js command prompt, even if it's tempting. Use the Windows one. Okay. There any Macs here? No.
Yeah, we have.
Okay.
It would be basically possible to run on any platform.
Yeah. So yeah, that's tested with Ubuntu Linux and yeah, macOS. Runs also on Raspbian, but of course with all the restrictions coming with it. But yeah, from a operating system point of view, it's possible. Yeah. Okay, and I'm changing into this V4.js directory. And what I'm doing now is I'm doing npm install. So npm is this Node.js package manager, and it like looks what dependencies V4.js has, and then downloads and installs it for you. So if we now all simultaneously hit it, we will get to the next phase of waiting. Yeah.
One small detail, like when you download from Git V4.js, it has always the branch this master. Maybe you can rename the folder to V4.js instead of V4.js master, just to make it a little bit easier with all models.
Yeah, that's good. A lot of yellow lines, it's good. Yeah, because I already had it installed, so it does nothing but okay, what happens here is that this node modules folder in V4.js is created and all the packages are in there. So, yeah. Okay, and then the example folder here. Yeah.
Is it possible to create this without having an internet connection? Is it copyable?
Sometimes. Sometimes it works.
Shouldn't be any registration stuff about it or so?
Yeah, Actually, basically, it should work. Yeah, just to move it to another machine. The whole folder should be fine. Actually.
And should it do the whole trick also?
Sorry.
Should it do the whole trick, or is there some kind of text file or
No.
manifest?
No. So the manifest itself is this package JSON.
So this should be copied also.
But yeah, so this holds all the dependencies for V4.js. But if you take the whole V4.js folder and it should be portable actually, should be fine, at least on the same operating system. Yeah. Because what npm install also does, it like compiles native extensions, so that's why it works on all kinds of operating systems. Okay. Yeah.
There's here
So the folder structure should be like in V4.js. In this V4.js folder, there should be directly the whole V4.js data. So it should not be another directory in there. Okay. Same goes for the workshop examples. Okay. That's probably a good idea. Okay, so what doing next is, so, or the basic idea is like this. We're having these examples, and we're having our V4.js, and we are now launching this new V4.js backend service and telling it where our examples are, okay? Or actually basically the other way around. We are going to the examples and telling it, launch it with this V4.js version here. So I'm going to my examples folder, like so. And what I'm doing now is I'm typing node, and I'm now referring to the V4.js directory, like period dot backslash V4.js server.js -e. Okay. Oh no. Okay, I already have it. So. Okay, better. So now something like this should happen.
Could you show it?
Yeah. Okay.
Basically, you start V4.js already on the server side.
Okay. It's like node. Can you all read this in the back, or is it too small? This -e tells the backend service that patches should be editable and that you can save them actually. So, quick tip for working with the command line: you can just pressing the up arrow, you can cycle through your recent commands, so you don't have to type everything again. And also there is this tab button auto completion where you can like hit tab and it gives you this auto suggestion.
Also hat jetzt jemand die Workshop-Files noch gar nicht? Weil wir haben mit den USBs gesprochen. Ah, du bist noch ganz noch.
Ich muss leider jetzt erst, aber ich
Yeah, but you should go in but change into the example directory first. And now CD V4.js 17. Okay, and now there's node, can write the node command like it's here. Yeah, but this period means parent directory. And then
Currently on the default batches are in. Anything copy paste to GitHub doesn't work either.
how empty? Will you open it with before or with VVVV.JS? Okay, yeah, yeah. Then it's, I'll come to that later. Okay, why?
We just wait. Sorry.
So if this thing runs like so, okay, well, it tells you, okay, you're ready if you are, then you can go into your browser and type localhost colon. That's odd. Yeah. Okay. Localhost colon and 5000 because it's running on port 5000. Okay. / example1. And it should see something like this. Example1. You have to add Bitte? Ja.
Genau, also das ist falsch, weil das quasi meine Struktur und dann
Hi. Okay. Super. Ja, ich glaube. Okay. So, okay, so because we launched this whole thing from this workshop example directory, our document root is this directory. So if you go, so everything which goes after this 5000 here, it refers really to these examples. Okay, so if we were to launch it from directly this folder, for example, we wouldn't need this. But since we launched it from the top, we are having this folder structure we can access via the web server. Okay.
Okay, that was slow down, and we have almost.
Okay.
Okay, who has the node installation and the server startup?
dem Beispiel, aus dem Beispiel. Also der Workshop kann ich sehr gut einstellen.
So, JS.
Genau, da nochmal da rein. Genau.
Where the server.js file is that we should use in that.
So do you guys all see something like this? Okay. So, okay. So actually this here is a lie because it wouldn't work, but this here is true. So what we're going to do now is we're launching the patch editor directly in the browser. Okay, so we don't need before to do the V4.js patching. We can do it all in the browser. So we are like just appending this here, and you probably will get a pop-up warning. It will be somewhere here, pop-up blocked. You have to click it, allow pop-ups for localhost, and then reload the page. And once you only have to do this once, so this should be good for the rest of the workshop at least. Okay.
And so this is the only thing that is a little bit complicated now in the beginning. These three things like install node and then make the server run, and then once the example works, you need to call the patch. By appending in the URL, maybe you can shortly
Yeah.
make it.
So so this is basically the source code of the let's see if I can make it bigger, of this website. So, and what happens here is so basically this is the boilerplate you need for V4.js to run with your project. So if you're not using like this kind of templates but want to do it in a existing website, this is the code which you have to add. And this is basically well, you have to include this require.js thing. You have to include V4.js itself, and then you can like refer to a V4.js file which should be loaded automatically when the page launches. Okay, and this is exactly the file we are referring here to. So this works with, of course, so the format is this #edit/ and then the file name of the V4 file you want to load. Okay, so it's all prepared for now for the workshop, but if you're doing, of course, own projects, you have to adjust this to the file names and file structure you're using. Okay.
Matthias?
Yeah.
Can you shortly highlight the hash edit main.v4p? This is a little detail, I don't know if everyone got it already. This is the way how you open the patch. If you append this hash edit and then / the folder, the patch name. Yeah, the patch name you find in that folder.
Do we need to keep the source?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You always have to keep this command line window open, okay? Because if you close it, the system, the service will stop, and you won't be able to access anything. So just leave it somewhere in the back. It's like a TTY renderer which logs what's going on, and it's useful.
Yeah, this is correct. This is an language. Can you double click it? Ah, this is why it's why. Can you click it? Double click it? Maybe you just try to reload it first. Yeah, then just need to allow.
Yeah?
Yeah, no, just allow it for. No, this is. You need to. Yeah. Now click this. Yeah. Yeah, that was good. And then select it. Always allow. And now you reload it. And now it's working.
Okay. So the first thing you'll notice is that it's actually looking a little nicer than before. So there are some changes in the design which, in my personal opinion, maybe make it a little easier. So it's easier to detect like this upgoing links here. Everything is a little see-through, so you can see what's going on with like hidden links or things like that. And also what you notice is that always this currently selected subtree is highlighted, or the other things are blurred out. So you always can see which nodes affect a certain node and which nodes are affected by a node. So if you have like a big patch, where a really messy patch, you click on a node and you see, or you can like detect the sub graph you are working on at the moment. Okay. Okay. So this first example here, what does it actually? So if we have, go again to the source code here, you see that there's this this text. Hi, it seems like V4.js does not work. Okay. And this doesn't work is it's wrapped in this HTML tag with an ID called state. And what this patch does, it uses this get element node from and refers to this state element. And it sets the text here to works and also does this color animation. So this is just to show you that you can really work together with the document object model, it is called, and not only do this like boxed renderers with graphics in it, but also can really access the surrounding website. Okay. All right. So I hope that was the part that was the most boring, and it gets more exciting from now on. So what you can do, for example, is we can create a renderer. We have two renderers here. Okay, let's see. We have two renderers, a canvas V4.js renderer and a EX9 renderer. And EX9 is actually wrong because it's WebGL. It comes from the time when the node names had to be the same as in V4, but that's not true anymore. But for backward compatibility reasons, it's still EX9. But the main differences between these two renderers are that this WebGL renderer really allows you to do things similar to EX9 nodes in V4. And this canvas renderer is more like this vector graphics kind of thing, where you can where you have paths and fills and strokes and things like that. So let's start with the renderer EX9 and just create a node. And what you can see is that it immediately appears on the website. Okay. I can create several renderers and remove them as well. And if we talk a little about the UI here, if you double click like you're used to it from before, you have this Node browser. It works pretty much as it works in V4, and you don't have like this fancy gestures like double right click you used to in V4. So instead you have this we call it macros, where you can just do quick operations. And so usually when you just do a value IO box, you do it like this, string IO box like this, and so on. And also like this common operations like +1, they are here, so this one is pre-filled or divided by 2. These common things. These are also customizable, but these are the ones I use the most. And yeah. For manipulating the pins, it's also similar to before, but it's different. Okay, so for this value IO box here, for example, I don't even know how it is in V4, but I think it's double click to change the value. Here you do a single right click, and you're in, and you can like either type directly, or you can use the scroll wheel to do this smooth transition. You can use Alt scroll wheel to do a floating point, and if you're lucky, you can also right click and drag. Okay, but did not find out yet how what's the right browser configuration if you need to do anything about that. So I'm sure you're running into these things like where you go here and try to right click and drag, and this happens because it's too similar to before to really do this mental switch automatically. You have to really well think about first the right click in and then do the manipulation in V4.js. Okay. So okay, it's even weirder with the color box, but maybe it's also a little better. I don't know. So with for the colors we have this separate values which we can just manipulate. We can also do V4-like things like control mouse wheel to do something, and shift mouse wheel, and I think alt mouse wheel, alt shift. Yeah, but well, this was in the beginning, but to be honest, since I have this here, I only use the sliders directly. So, and the size of this renderer canvas here is determined in this back buffer width and height, like you know it from before. It's 0, so it's the default of 512, but you can adjust this to the format you need, of course. So the 3D graphic stuff is really just the same as in V4. So you have shaders, like this directional shader here. You have meshes or geometries. And so on. You have the group node. Yeah, also have this inspector here. It also looks a little different, but the idea is the same, that it exposes configuration pins that you don't see in the patch itself. So there are a lot of nodes already ported, but of course there are a lot of nodes missing still. But you can find your way around pretty well.
How did you open the inspector?
It's Control I. It should be open already, but if you lost it somehow, it's Control I. So, just show it quickly that it's possible. You can also define shader code or shader nodes inside the patch directly. So you can use this define effect node here in the inspector, give it a name, and right click it. So you have the code editor. And probably someday there will be a really useful editor here with all the autocomplete and yeah. Sorry. But for now it's just a basic text editor, and you can compile it inline here, and you can use the nodes. Yeah. Like a regular effect nodes. Okay, but we're not going to dive into this topic now, just to show you that it exists. Okay. So, okay, in contrast to this WebGL renderer, we have the canvas renderer, and it has complete different set of nodes to work with. We have this, so just type canvas and you see what kinds of nodes you can work with here. So these are like shapes, arc, quad, and things like that. And I'm doing a quick thing here. And now to manipulate this shape, you would think in the same terms as you think with render states in DirectX 9 nodes or DirectX 11 nodes. So we have render states for these shapes, like fill, for example. Where we can change the color, the full color here, and stroke. Where we can change the color and the width. And we can use the regular transform nodes to the usual stuff. Alright, so these are these. I'm going to remove this renderer here. Stick with that one. Sorry. So these are these two types of graphics we can do. Well, I think we don't have to really go into all these nodes we have, because you all know before, and it's really very similar. So I'd rather show you the more V4.js specific things here. So what if we want to do something outside of this box here? So we want to really manipulate the document surrounding it. We can do so with this element nodes. Okay, and an element HTML. It just adds a DOM object to the document, like so. Okay, so I have here my hello. And it's just appended to the document. I can use all types of element or styling nodes. So if you're a little into web development and you know CSS, you can apply this knowledge here by just using the style node. So, for example, here I happen to know that there is a CSS property called color. Okay, and I just use the property name color and the value red here. And the text turns red. So it's basically the same which is done over here, but I'm using this generic style node where you can put all the CSS style sheet values and properties you know in. So this, but there are also like other prepared style nodes. Like, for example, background. So these are the types of nodes which already, where you don't have to know specific any specifics about CSS, more like a way to do it the before way to provide you these prepared nodes. Yeah. So going background here, and you can chain this up, these styles up, like you would chain up render states. Okay, and you can also use switch nodes here, for example, to route these styles through exactly the way you know it from before. Okay. So what I'm trying now is I want to make an interface for this graphics here, for example. So I am creating a range slider. Okay, and this range slider is an HTML input element, and I could build this element myself with this element node, giving it a tag name and all the properties and things like that. But I'm using this prepared one. So this range slider, I think we can't probably see it here. Or yeah, it's a little unfortunate with the color here, but so it's also appended just to the document, and we have like this. Yeah.
Sorry, would you mind just zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Okay. And for these form input elements, I can do get value HTML, have to do s value here because it's a string output. Okay. So now I can have this input element and route it into my graphics here, for example. So we have, what kinds of things do we have here? We have text input, like so. We have radio buttons, checkboxes. We have text areas, maybe. Yeah. So, and all these can again be manipulated with styles. So if I'm doing border, for example, for this text input, I'm giving it a large well, red border. And all these inputs, all these kind of element nodes have this enable pin. You can where you can switch off and on these elements so they get hidden, and they really not only get hidden, but they are not rendered at all in the website. So if you disable them, they get removed, and if you enable them, they get inserted in the website again. Okay. So coming back to this element node, this is also some kind of generic HTML element. Okay, so you can give it, so default is this div tag. So if you're into HTML and you know different types of tags, you can use other tag names here. Okay, but for now I'm using the element, and so the thing with this div is that it's always expanding across, it's making a box expanding all the way across the space it has, basically. So let's do it like this. I'm having this element box, and I'm using my border style from above. So you see what happens here, right? So, and what I can do now is I can nest these elements. So these elements have a layer out, and I can use this and put it into another one. So I'm creating another element, maybe with different color. Give it another text. So, and what you can see here is, if you just created them, they're just appended to the document. But you can now nest those inside each other. And
Parent pin. The pin is called parent.
yeah, exactly. So you use this in this parent, and it kind of works the other way around than the rest of before, because you have to think from top down. So you're not telling an element, these are my children, but you're telling an element, this is my parent element. Okay.
You could make an ordered or an unordered list and then do a spread of list items. Or
yeah, sure. So, like, putting a linear spread here. And feed this in here. So it works like this. Okay. So all this,
that's cool.
like the spread magic, everything applies to here. So also like really just it works the same as before. So if I do like two different colors here. So this spread principles, they work the same as in before. So if you have different input sizes, they get resampled and so on. Okay, so what if we want to have more than one element nested? We have this group node, group HTML. And this one really works exactly the other way around than before, because we have the grouped elements are at the bottom and not as you used it at the top. So it's basically like so. Okay, so the reason why it's this way is because this is the only way to make sure that each element only has one parent, because of the nature of the before graph. So if it would be the other way around, you would have the chance to define a parent element or two parent elements for an element, and that way, well, the result would be arbitrary, right? So this is the way to really specifically tell the structure or create the structure of the DOM. And also this is the way with the grouping to define the order of the elements. So because otherwise you see, you could also just skip the group here and do it like this. But in that case, it would be rendered like the order of how you created the links. So the graph does not show you which one is actually the first one. Okay, so it's more or less random each time you load the page. So we're using this group node here to do things like that. Okay. Next thing we're talking about is events. So the JavaScript itself is like this really event-based programming language, and we try to like translate this into this V4 language. So, for example, if I have a button here.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Is there any similar way in VVV to get some kind of help patch explaining?
Unfortunately, not at the moment. No help patches here. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also no back, so it's like a VVV hardware. You cannot go control Z.
Okay.
If you make something wrong, it's wrong.
Okay. You just try and connect things. It's okay.
So I have this button here at the bottom. It says push me. And also again, I can use this all the styling nodes and nesting. All the things we talked about also applies here. It also has a parent input pin. I could nest this also somewhere here. So it's inside now, or I can. So I could also like nest this here. Sorry, and then it's spreaded also, because you see this element node here is spreaded with the linear spread, so it outputs like 7 layers. And if I put this 7 layers to another element, it's also spreaded. So this is it's pretty powerful actually. You can, but well, it comes with the same mind-boggling things as you know it from before. So so as soon as you decide, for example, that you want to have one-click button everywhere, but here at the third, there should be 2 buttons, for example. Okay, you have to go in here and do some resampling, set slicing, select, slice, and so on. But yeah, that's what we do in before, right? So it's perfectly fine. Okay, so with the events, we have this. They all basically start with on anything, and with on click, for example, which we are using now. Not sure why this. This just gives me a bang here for all the nodes. So what should we do? That's annoying. I'm doing something like, well, if any of these buttons here is pressed, what's happening? The background color of what? Of this renderer should switch. Or if I'm more like, not sure if this works with the button as well. On mouse down. No. Because it's a button. But you can use these events on all the element nodes. Because you don't have to use it only for this input or user interface things, but you can use it on all the elements. Okay, so since this only gives me one bang, I would need a flip-flop or something. And if you happen to find an event that's not listed here, because not all elements there are implemented, you can just use this on event thing where you define the event. So if you somehow know there is a certain event from your web programming experience, you can use it here with this node. Okay. So are there any questions so far about this whole element structure thing? Okay.
Yeah, that's, what's the explanation in JS itself of this hierarchy elements relationship?
Sorry?
I understand that this is not just VVV, you're interpreting the, another kind of coding in the browser. So what's the theory behind these elements? Well, it basically only uses this JavaScript itself offers you a way to access the DOM and create elements, add event listeners to these elements, and so on. Read properties, change the attributes, and so this is all what JavaScript comes with. And specifically here, there's also jQuery used for this access operations, but actually it's not really necessary. So at some point, it will be plain JavaScript. Okay. Do you have any way to export this as JS code? Okay, that's a good question actually. So what we are doing here is we have this patch file and we can just save it with Control S. Okay, so and if you have experience with previous versions of V4, what happened there was you got the download of the file, and it was really annoying because you had to override the existing one, and it was a mess. What happens now is it just asks you if you want to save it, and it's saved. Okay, and this backend service here, which is still running, it does that for you. Okay, and
it has also the drawback that now you cannot save as anymore. So if you want to make a backup of your V4P file, you need to make it in the folder and just copy paste.
okay.
Maybe I'm the only one who's using Firefox, so maybe some other reason, but I still get the download window when I Control S.
Okay, yeah, that might really be because of Firefox. Okay. Well, okay. Should have added this at the beginning. So it's basically it works with Firefox as well, but it's really tested towards Chrome. So not talking about the execution, because execution should be fine. Firefox, Safari, Chrome, and Edge. But this whole editor stuff, it's really tailored to Chrome. Okay. Okay, and so if we have a look into that V4P file, so you see it's not XML anymore, because it used to be just regular V4 format, but we switched to JSON format here. It's basically the same structure, but only the format is JSON now, because it allows us to load like 100 times faster. Okay, because this XML parsing is very slow, and JavaScript is so good with JSON that it's it works like a snap, and so we decided to switch to an own format basically. So it has the same properties and so on. You can easily translate it. Also, there is saved an XML version of that file as kind of a backup, but basically it's only this JSON file used. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now we should also change the file ending, or
Yeah, that.
maybe in the future. Because now we also cannot open it anymore in V4.
Yeah, that's basically true. Yeah. So.
Just confusing.
This was the reason why this still has the same ending is mostly because of backwards compatibility for existing projects. But of course, it's not really a V4 file anymore. It's a V4.js file. Yeah. So okay, and so to come back to your question, what V4 does, it really each time you change the patch, it actually really compiles it to JavaScript. Okay, and at some point, we're not there yet, but at some point you will have the opportunity to really do export and really don't have to really kind of bundle or bake it to pure JavaScript. And so this is something we're working on, but it's sometime in the future. Yeah.
Are these canvas and stroke properties of the canvas renderer converted to CSS, or are they still executed as JavaScript?
They are executed as JavaScript. They are direct representations of the Canvas API actually. So this Canvas API is also like this stateful programming where you define the current state and then draw something and then change the state and draw something else. And V4.js does this for you. So these properties, they are rather similar to CSS, but you can't say that they are really the same.
Because it was creating the
Yeah,
which was the beginning of the example. It's not canvas element, actually it's the plain HTML element. So
exactly. Yeah, this is
this specific situation more than in CSS.
yeah. We have these are different sets of nodes actually. So we have these like these CSS nodes, like they're here for this font or something like that. And for the canvas element, we have other nodes. So this one would not go here, so you can't connect it, right?
Yeah, then I was wrong with the first question.
Okay.
I'm not really talking about the canvas things.
Okay.
More like the things that could be. I'm not even sure if CSS3 is performing better than JavaScript on the client. Maybe it's not even an advantage.
Okay. Well, okay. Then I suggest we move on to the next example. So if you want, you can just save it, or you can just switch to example 2 here. So the idea here is that we already did this in the last workshop, doing this very quickly. We want to integrate our V4.js animation in an existing website. So this is a web developer gave us this thing here, and we have V4.js in it. And well, we want to fill this area here with our own header graphics, right? So if you again open the editor with this string here, it should be fine. It should not prompt you for a pop-up exception anymore. And I'm now looking at the source code, and I see that the web developer prepared this area here, and he called it header graphics. Okay, and now I'm trying to refer to this area in my before patch and attach a renderer to it, because now when I create a renderer, it's just at the bottom. Okay, this is not where I want it to have. So I use the get element HTML node, and here as the input I can define a selector. The selector can be, it's a common term in web development where you can define a string which finds you an object in this document. So for now we want to use to find the element with the ID header graphics, and we do this by using pound header graphics and use this as a selector here. And now we see that we have one output. And this output now should be the parent element of our renderer. Okay. So this is also something which is different from how V4.js worked before. But I hope to say that this is now easier to understand. Okay, so now it's in here, but you see it's like not fitting here. And so, well, I actually want to have somehow this, I want to know how big this area is, because now I could use the back buffer width and back buffer height to adjust the renderer. And it might work very well, very often, when you know how big this area is. But if you don't, or if the area changes its size, for example, you probably want to do this automatically. And there's no node in V4.js right at the moment which gives you the width and the height of an element. So there's get position, for example, which gives you the position of this element in pixels or in normalized -1 + 1 coordinates, but we can find a node which gives us the dimension actually. So in V4.js you have the possibility to define your own nodes with this define node, and I prepare you see again it works similar to the define effect node we had before. We give it a name in the inspector, and we right click it, and then we have the actual JavaScript code of that node. And so what this already does, it just outputs here with this jQuery code the width and the height of the elements. So we can just use it regularly in our patch. Okay, so I made a mistake here. I did. So here was I did this typo, which was pin types dot height, and I changed this to pin types dot value. Okay. And I hit compile. It was green, and then I was able to. Okay. Yeah, then you can probably use aspect ratio. It's all the same as before. Okay. Yeah. There's an error in the code here. We have to right click on it. Okay, so these are the basic concepts of V4.js, and this was also what already was possible until now. So this is just plain front-end development here, okay? So as soon as you wanted to do something like writing a file on a local file system or accessing any resource out of the browser, you would have to like switch to another programming language like PHP or Ruby and make V4.js frontend talk to this. Okay. But now with this new version and this new Node.js backend, we have the possibility to we have this backend service, and we can make it talk to the front end. And that's what we're going to do in the next example. So I'm quickly showing you what we are heading to. So what we're doing is we're creating a quick, like any kind of graphics generator, and we can store it in the database. And we are reading all the previously stored items from a database. Okay, so this is something which you just wouldn't have been able to do with V4.js before. You would have to create the backend service yourself, but now we're going to do this purely in V4.js. Okay, so let's open example 3. And it's basically empty. The only thing I prepared here was this, mouse position Q. Okay. So, well, I'm just patching around a little. You can do yourself. You can follow me or just do something yourself. No. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have got it in the previous example, we found out that the get size node, the height pin, you can connect it.
Yeah. That's, I had it on the screen. Sorry, if was too fast. If you open the code of this define, there's a kind of typo or mistake. There's pin types dot height instead of pin types dot value. So if you change this, it works. Okay.
Yeah, then just ignore it.
How do you say the change
In that code editor, basically just by saving the patch itself. Also, you don't have to save the code because it's embedded like in the patch. So, and the trick here is that you see the code actually is a pin. You can't see it because it's only a configuration pin, but it's stored inside the pin of the node. It's all inside the one document, not a separate file.
Will you make a final version of the workshop
Yeah.
material?
So they are basically in that done folder. In the examples, they are the
Or did you say you're done for this?
yeah, basically.
Okay.
So I'm not sure where. Okay. So I have this thing here. I also add a range slider again. Get value. Put this here. I see the range slider goes from 0 to 10 and with steps of 1. So I want to change this to something like something smaller. Also not so many steps. So this is basically my like graphics generator here. And what I'm going to do now is I have these two things. I have this renderer and I have this slider, and I want both of them go into one parent element. So I'm creating just an element and a group. And I do it like so. So to show you that this is now grouped together, a little border around it. Better? So, and in order to have a structured application, of course, what I'm doing now is just I want to have this in a subpatch. And this was also something which was rather painful previously because you had to manually create a file and then refer to it. Now you can just create a new subpatch here, and it asks you how you want to call it. And now you have it. And what I'm doing is I'll take all this. Not sure why I can't. Right click here and paste it. So you can't cut at the moment, you have to copy and paste it and then remove the original. Yeah. Remove the rest. Please don't try or make sure you don't copy the sub patch and paste it into itself, but I'm not sure what's happening, so probably it will. Okay, so we have yeah. So yeah. You don't have to build the same thing here. We're just
no, it's okay. It's about the subpatch. I don't know.
The subpatch. Double click and create new subpatch. Okay. And to go into it, just right click it then. Okay, so what's happening now is we have this, in our example 3, there's a file called gallery.sqlite, okay, and SQLite is a very basic database library or API, and it allows you to don't have to install a database management system. It's really only file-based, okay? So, but you can use all usual SQL statements to access it. And it comes with a couple of downsides, of course. So simultaneously accessing it might be a problem and things like that. But for general, just persisting data, it's very useful because you don't have to care about any additional software to install. So we have this database, and in this database, I'll show you quickly, there's one table in it. It's called gallery posts. And it has three columns actually, ID, author, and image data. And this is where we want to store the image data we are creating here. Okay? So we just keep in mind that the table is called gallery posts, and this column is called image data. And don't be scared if you don't know anything about databases and SQL, it's gonna be fine here. Okay. So I'm now closing for now this subpatch, and I create a database node. And this works pretty much like the MySQL nodes and the SQLite nodes in before. So I give it, I tell it which database file it should use, which is gallery SQLite. And I tell it to connect. And hopefully you all get a connected here.
You have to set up the tables in the database first, right?
Yeah, you have to.
So you've got to create a database file externally.
So what I'm doing now is creating this select SQLite node. Select statement is just for querying the table. Okay, so it gives me the data out of the table. I can filter it and retrieve the data. And it works the same way as all the SQL nodes in before worked. You have to like define which output pins you want to have, which data you want to have. So in the inspector, is field names, sorry, probably you don't see it. Field names, we enter image data because that's the name of the column, if you remember. Okay. So now we have this additional pin here, image data. And we want this to be queried from the table called gallery posts. Okay, so here you see the statement it creates for you. Select asterisk from gallery posts. You don't have to care about it if you're interested in it. It's a way to like review or make sure this is the correct query it creates. You would get database errors here if there are any, and so on. On data as usual. So what I did here is I just quickly, made this 1-0, bang, probably. And now I have image data coming out here because the database is pre-filled already. Okay. And this is a base 64 encoded binary data, actually. So it's stored that way in database. So if I browse the database, this is my table, an ID, and the image data is filled with this, this string here. And that's now really convenient because we can use this string directly with an image tag. Okay, we're creating this image element. And I don't see anything here because usually when you use the image element, you have to define the source file name. Okay, and this source attribute here, it can be either be a file name or it can be such a base64 encoded binary data. So if I connect this, I just have the image elements out of the database on my website here. So I don't want to have them that big, of course. So I'm making the width something like 150. These are string, by the way, so even. And also, I don't want them to be sticking together that much, so I'm using the margin node here as a style, and we'll define a little margin to the right and margin to the bottom if there are more. So you had a question?
Yeah, what type of style?
Sorry?
Style or full select?
Style HTML.
Select.
Not sure what you mean? Okay, this one. Okay. Select SQLite. This one.
Why you have 4 output pins in select?
Yeah, okay.
4 pins.
So in the inspector, you have to put image data in this field names thing. So you get this image data output. Okay. So does this work for everybody? Or anybody?
Of course, we have no images yet.
You should have, actually. That should be there too.
I can see image data.
Okay, when we go there, then we can.
So we just found out that renaming this column name here is not a good idea. So if you made a mistake here, don't rename it, just append the correct one. So you get another pin. But try not to rename it actually, because yeah, then the backend process would crash, and this would be an actual real crash. You would not be able to recover. You would have to restart it.
Matthias?
Yeah.
There's something like glitch question mark.
Yeah.
Have some reload.
No, it's fine.
Let's see.
Just send queries. Okay. Because
Connect with banks.
no. So what we probably want to do here is we want to have an on-open, and yeah, so this on-open, bang the select like this. Okay. Okay. Okay, so now we are able to read from the database. Now we are trying to write into the database, and now we have to find a way to get the data out of this image. And in the subpatch, I'm going to use the as data URL node. And I just can use this with the renderer. And you can see that this, if you hit the update here, it gives you really this base64 encoded data, which we can later store directly in the database. So I am creating this output pin for, this works the same as in before. Create an output pin, you name it. And also I create this input pin for the update. And you notice that things are getting laggy, probably. That's because the whole data now is displayed in this I/O box. So that should be truncated, of course, but now, yeah, it's call this update, like so. Well, as soon as I close it, it will be fine again, but yeah. So basically now I have this subpatch where I can hit update and it always gives me the current data, yeah. So using this, I'm now creating this insert SQLite network node. Connect this to my database connection. For the fields, I'm using my column name image data. For a table name, I'm using gallery posts. And since these are very basic SQL nodes, I have to make sure that this string here is wrapped in single ticks. Okay, so I'm using the plus string. Make it 3 inputs. And I have to watch out here because this is different. The order of the pins is different than before. So this, here's the first pin is in the spears string, and the other ones are the inputs actual. So in before it's flipped. So I'm connecting this to the middle one. and making this single tick quotes wrapping around this. And that's going to be my values, okay?
Is there a way to get a texture from an AX9?
Yeah, the same way actually. Yeah. It's okay. It's not really. It's yeah. It's binary JPEG or PNG data. Okay. Yeah.
Can we have frame delay? Some extra feedback effect?
For the EX9 or for the WebGL nodes. Yeah, you all know best that we should have, but somehow doesn't work. In theory, it should be possible, but it's glitch at the moment. Okay, so maybe if we, so in general, the renderer has an output, DX9 out, where you can use this DX9 texture, which is oddly named DX9 texture because only it's useful in V4. But you could use this texture then in another renderer, for example. So maybe if you chain up multiple renderers and then have a frame delay, maybe it works. Actually, no. Yeah, there are certain nodes that can delay the output for one frame and then suck it up. But I think this one at the moment works not that way. But I think it can. Yeah. Okay. And I'm also like creating a button which says save. And again on click. And use this on click here as my bang. So, and now of course I want, if I insert it into the database, I want to reload this list below. So I take the inserted pin and let it go into that select statement again. So let's see. Okay, yeah. So can now right click, I did right click, clears the queue, and I can hit save, and it's appended to the, okay. What I also have to do is I have to use this on click event for the update so that the new data is actually retrieved. Well, this is on open. Sorry. Okay, so now it's probably a good time to explain what these dashed links and yellow pins here mean. Okay, so basically these yellow pins are indicators that the node is not executed or evaluated inside the browser in the front end, but it's basically executed here somewhere in the backend service. Okay, so the idea is that all the parts that are front-end specific go into the browser, and all the parts that are backend specific are in the backend, of course, in this backend process, and they talk to each other. And these dashed lines, links here, this is where the actual communication between those two parts happens, okay? And this is actual network transfer. At the moment, it's going to a localhost, but the cool thing is when you save this and you go to the address from another machine, you have the same experience, okay? Also, you can, I wanted to show it actually with the mobile phone because it works the same way, but I can't get around this old IP thing here. But usually this front end is detached from all this database stuff. So this database stuff is really only executed on your computer, on the machine, while other people connecting to your machine only run the front end part. Okay, so, and what you can also see is that, for example, this OR here, it's actually not really backend specific, right? It can run in both. But since it is like between two backend nodes, it just gets moved to the backend, because no use for V4.js to like send this, I have inserted the record back to the client, to the front end, then do this OR, and then again send it to the backend to do the actual query. So so this is automatically detected that this is some kind of separated backend service. Okay, so like this area here, it's completely run in the backend. So what you're doing actually is you're creating a client-server application without even noticing. Okay, you don't have to. In theory, you wouldn't even have to see yellow or dashed lines here. In theory, it should work without even knowing that it's run somewhere else. But I guess it's a good idea to create a little awareness.
Like a WebSocket connection, can you set up push messages?
It's a WebSocket connection, yeah. Yeah.
And does it automatically handle instancing if multiple clients are
Yeah.
connected to the data connection?
Yeah. So it for each client connecting, only this part here is spawned in the backend and executed. So, and it tries to be as efficient as possible. Like it runs basically with a frame rate of like each 5 seconds an evaluation. Only if it gets it's triggered from the front end, it evaluates and gets immediate response.
Okay, great.
Okay. Having that said, it's really not very memory efficient. So it's not a good idea to like create something, put it on Hacker News, and then blow your server up. It's really dedicated more like to have a predictable number of clients having connected to it. Okay, so this is basically this new idea of V4.js. So these database nodes are an example of what we can do now. Okay, because Node.js comes with this npm package manager, and this npm library. Well, it's the biggest library, literally, of software packages that exists, and there is packages for all kinds of stuff. Also for all kinds of stuff we know from before, like Fermata, Kinect, all the things. So there is now the door open for creating nodes for this. So maybe you saw on the screenshot in the workshop description that there is already this Fermata node, so it's already started. It's not ready really to use, but it's somewhere and it's coming. And all the things that previously were not possible now actually are. And these libraries, these npm libraries, are working really high level, so you can adapt it really quick. Also, V4.js comes with a mechanism where you create a node and just tell the node which dependencies that it has for the npm. So I switched it off now for the SQLite package because I don't want it to strain the network connection. But actually, this whole SQLite package is only installed the first time you create one of these nodes. So you create a database node on a fresh V4.js installation, and it automatically retrieves the package and installs it to make it as less or as painless as possible for before developers who usually don't get in touch with things like that. Okay, so that's what my that was my big selling point here in this workshop.
So, but you basically don't have those nodes, just like a entry somewhere, and then it fetches the package at all.
No, you would have to implement the nodes yourself using these packages. Okay, so npm package does not mean automatically that that's somehow automatically created a node like they have it now in VL. Probably it's possible sometime, but at the moment you would have to wrap around your own JavaScript code to use the library and fill the pins and read the pins and things like that.
Okay. Because of that installing behaviors and create nodes, do you have to be on the web to write VVVV.JS?
Basically, for that purpose, yes, actually. Yeah.
But once it's made, you can then just run it in a local network.
Yeah, sure. It initially, this is what happens also in the beginning when you launch the service. It says something like scanning for installed packages. So if it's already installed, or also if you installed it manually, it wouldn't fetch it again. Okay.
Does it basically update all the time too?
No, but you would do this manually, npm update command. And, yeah.
And is there some way to force the evaluation on the server side? Like, say, this part
in theory, it should be so smart that it's doing this when it's needed. So each time a pin on the front end changes on such an interfacing connection, it sends this pin value to the backend, and the backend determines in the usual before way, do I have to evaluate or is it fine? WebSocket. Yeah. Okay. So maybe let's go to the next example. Not sure if we make it through fully, but I'll again show you initially what I'm trying to do. And this is what we're doing now is we make V4.js talk to V4. Okay, so I have prepared this an example 4. There's a V4 patch called Big Application, and if you have the chance, please don't use the latest beta because there's some glitch on their end. But it's fine if you have to, but we'll see. I'm using a previous version of V4. And I'm loading this big application patch. Okay, so imagine you have this big 6-side projection on a sphere somewhere in a stadium or something. And well, the idea is we want to be able to control the rotation of this thing and also send some data, some image data to it, probably. So I'm launching now my example 4, which are already prepared. Okay, so this is what where we're heading to. We want to have this like interface where you can rotate the the sphere, and probably send some image over. Maybe it shows up, yeah. So I did the math wrong here, so this is why I'm not appearing on at the correct position, but I think the idea is clear. Yeah. Okay. So this is what we're building. And if we have a look at the before patch itself, it has one UDP connection on port 8000, which is waiting for the rotation angles, and one TCP connection on 8002, which is waiting for the image data. So, okay. So, okay. So I'm changing to example 4, and what I already have here is this drag and drop logic, and I'm creating this renderer. With the fung. And also I have this problem that this window resizes all the time. Not sure if you have it too. Yeah, so you would also have to do this perspective transformation thing, which you know from before. There's no camera or look at, or maybe there's a look at. Yeah, there's look at. Can use it. And also there's this back buffer thing, which you can adjust in the inspector. So I'm making the cylinder much smaller here. Just to have an indication of the rotation, of course. So I can now drag it around here, and what I'm doing now is I'm creating the UDP network client node with the port 8000, which we know from the before patch on the other side, right? And I'm taking this rotation values from over here, make them a string, and concat them with a spectral node with a, let's see, semicolon, because we know from the before patch here that it's splitting it up, separating it also with the semicolon. Okay. And so we have a string here, and the UDP node, it needs a buffer input. Okay, and this is similar to raw format in before. So we're having this as buffer string. And we are sending the value to localhost, like each time the left button is done. So, okay, and then we should be fine, actually.
Is there a way to put like a client or session ID in there? Otherwise, if you had multiple people logging in at all, it'd be the same data, right?
Yeah, but that's probably not the purpose of UDP then. So if you're using the TCP node, for example, you would really have separate outputs.
Separate connections.
So I really want to actually, I would have liked to show you that you can easily use your mobile phone now, connect to the IP address, and then just drag around here. You would probably, it's a good idea to use for this host name here. So we have this, you would not be able to use localhost because once you're on the phone, you're not connecting to your localhost, but you want to connect to, so we have this location node and it outputs you the host name where you are browsing at the moment. So you can use this here. Okay. So now if you save it, you connect from another computer to your IP address on port 5000. You have this very thing here, and you would be able to control this huge 6-projector mapping in the stadium. Okay. And it's really confusing switching or working both in V4 and V4.js. So yeah, because you're always doing the wrong thing in the respective environment. Okay, and the next thing we want to do is send image data to this TCP server. And so I'm creating a file input. And it's down here. And I have a get file node. Sorry. I have a get file node. I have an S buffer HTML file node where you could, for example, read only parts and then only transfer small chunks, but we're just using the whole data here. And I have a TCP client which I also connect to localhost and the port 8002. And once I enable it, I should have actually a connection here. So, okay, there I see that there's one connection from V4.js here. And this is a little different to how it works in V4 is that you can't put anything, any data here and send data using this. So we have the separate node, TCP network, TCP send. So I thought this would make more sense instead of having this, like you would have to have a frame delay and get a response for incoming data. So now you have a connection where you can send to. Okay. So, but as you can see here, I'm not able to connect this buffer node here with this buffer node. Anybody any idea why?
Yeah, you have to base64.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So at the moment, the communication between front-end and back-end only goes via strings, basically, or primitive data. Color is okay, but buffers are at the moment not can't be transferred via this front-end back-end WebSocket connection. So at the moment there's this workaround like a string buffer. Okay, and I'm encoding this whole thing to base64. And on the other end, making as buffer string, decoding the base64 and connecting it. So and what happens here is that you see that this is the interface between the front end and the back end. Okay. So I guess you do have to be aware a little of front end back end separation, but at the moment this is the workaround. In the future there would be other ways to make this with a single node or something like that. Okay, creating another button and an on-click event. Okay, so and maybe if we're lucky it works out of the box. Yeah, okay, that's good. So of course this is really not a best practice, it's really only a demo of how we can transfer binary data, because you see that here we're using the dynamic texture and all this raw data is queued up and really gets messy memory wise after some time. You would also be of course able to just use the writer node in V4.js to write to the file, yeah, and then use the file in V4.js and just give a ping to the main application to reload or something like that. But just to show you what's possible. Also, that's the other way around. I think I'm not going to show it, just so you know, you could also, from a V4 renderer, make the raw texture, encode this as base64, send it, and then feed this again into an image tag. So you could stream on a low frame rate, but at least for purposes of doing some interface from V4, graphics from V4 to the browser.
Thumbnails could be loaded so that you select
yeah,
one thumbnail, for example.
Something like that, yeah. Okay, so as mentioned before, you have all the, because well, it's not really pretty, and probably once you reload the page, the elements are like shifted because we never ever nest these elements we created here anywhere. So file input, maybe when we reload, it will be on top. Maybe it will. So in the workshop examples folder, there is this. There are the examples again, but basically 3 and 4 are the complete ones where you can see how the element nesting is done properly. So it's a little time consuming, so I skipped this part here. Okay, so this actually leads to wrapping up when not to use V4.js. So I think you should know that you should not at the moment put an application using this backend process and expose it in the internet. It's really not a good idea because you would like really open your computer or your server completely up. Might go well sometime because nobody knows the protocol and nobody knows how to crack it. But in theory, because you see in the example number 3. So things like this is having a database descriptor somewhere on the front end in the internet. It's such a bad idea, okay? So, and even if you decide that you can, for example, run this whole command we did at the beginning without this -e flag. So this would at least prevent an attacker to launch the editor that way and save a new version of, but that wouldn't work. But once an attacker understands how your patch works, which he can because of the nature of how JavaScript is transferred to your browser, he would be able to, I don't know, use etc passwd in a Linux system or something like that, and somehow get in a debug message information or write to any writes. So while it's okay to use it in like this isolated environment of having a V4 application and having also some interfaces, some web interfaces, should be fine actually. But do not use this backend thing in the internet at the moment. Okay, so we are thinking and working about a solution how to, once in production, really separate and tear apart these patches. So that's really automatically not good for you to do, but find a way to compile it and then do two components which then talk to each other. But that's in the future, and for now it would be really dangerous to do this. Yeah, having that said, also don't build your portfolio website or something like that with completely with V4.js, with this element nodes, for example. The reason for this is it wouldn't be indexed by search engines. Okay. Not sure, maybe Google does now already evaluate really JavaScript. They probably do, but in general, so the idea of the search engine robots scraping around, they only store and archive the actual HTML or content. So they would just see a blank page probably. Yeah, and of course, when you're doing, or when you're really considering to do some public website, consider that people are coming with mobile devices to its site, and it's going to drain their battery. They're going to be frustrated with loading times, things like that. So there are certain use cases for V4.js, but probably not these. Okay, so it's fine to use only this front-end part. You can still use V4.js the way you did before. You don't have to use this back-end process. You can just import the script tags in your HTML as you did before, and then in case of someone hitting Control-S, or in case of you wanting to run a backend node, just won't work. Okay, but then in that case you would just stick with all the front-end functionality and it would be fine. And it's okay to do this like on the V4.js website, or even some data visualization. It's perfectly fine, but you have to keep in mind that that it's a lot more resource intensive, of course, than having a visual website. And also what I mentioned before, it's at the moment it's not suited for having lots of connections. So it's actually working fine, but you can see a really significant increase of memory usage for each connection. So yeah, keep this in mind. Okay. Okay. I guess that's it from my side. Yeah, hope it was not too fast or too slow. Hope you kind of see the potential that comes with this new technology, that it someday will make, of course, v4 obsolete. But it's real then.
Yeah, when you say v4 obsolete, have you thought of wrapping it into an Electron app?
Yeah, actually that was the plan at the beginning of this whole backend thing. But it was rather difficult to keep the old functionality of don't using all this backend stuff. I wanted to also have it run purely as a front-end library if you want to like add it to your WordPress blog or something. And maybe there are now different ways to work with Electron, but back then it was to have this two sides of running in an application and having this communication, and also then the same way just tearing it apart as a client-server thing was not possible back then. Maybe one a thing which goes into that direction is you can launch the whole thing like this, I think. Yeah. Okay. So actually, there should not be any address bar here, and also there should be there will be a option to make it really full screen, so it kind of feels like an actual application that you can launch. If you decide to use it as a single instance thing, which might make sense in really many cases when you have some is it exponent of English? Exponent. Yeah.
Like exhibit.
Yeah, an exhibit which is very focused on typography or editorial layout, which is a pain in v4. And if you don't need high performance graphics, but want to have an information kiosk, for example, where people just browse through information, then it's perfectly fine to use v4.js that way, with launching it as an app.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I did already commercial works with v4.js, and I was really happy about it. I was basically setting up touchscreen interfaces that also needed to be designed in CSS, so that was kind of perfect. And yeah, that way I had a experience that it's kind of nice to just use Chrome in kiosk mode. It has this. You can start the Chrome browser with a batch file, telling Chrome to start in kiosk mode, so no one can use options or anything or can get out of it. So it's kind of perfect. You can even distribute it on multiple devices, and with these network nodes you can quickly scale your, for example, touch interaction surface for multiple devices. So you can spread like 10 Android devices and they're all networking with each other, and you only need to make one v4.js patch for it basically. And yeah, so it's the kind of a new step into the direction of mobile devices that we can also access now. Yeah.
You have a question?
Yes, I didn't understand you. You were using the Chrome platform.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, Chromecast.
So no. I mean, just Google Chrome, the browser. You can launch it in kiosk mode. That means there's no browser elements visible. So for the user, it's just like a renderer. And this one you can, you can just use it like the V4 renderer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I was wondering what's the I don't know the benefits of using this kind of working, and why not by grouping the patch we are working with, but it's quite evident that if you want to cross-platform your patch, you have to use some kind of browser to use another computer, a cell phone, something like that. Just a self-response.
Yeah. And what is the exact question then?
Why not use by grouping?
The difference between the benefits of using that kind of working, the cross-platforming, between that kind of work and by grouping.
I think you can't compare it directly. It's another thing. It's like here we are in Node server and JavaScript environment, so we're using all the also kind of classical workflows that are already so optimized that you can now that V4.js can do it. Yeah, you can enter these programming tasks, and you cannot do this with bulk grouping. It's another thing. Yeah. Exactly.
Also, you would touch. You could touch the V4 license, of course. No, don't do it. Support V4, buy licenses. But yeah, so I'm not really sure myself about all the possibilities that come now with this whole thing, because you also can do a TCP server now in V4.js, for example, which then works the way that this server really is, although there are multiple clients on it, there's only one server, but for all the clients, it looks like they are getting the data from other clients. So you can create some distributed systems with some intersection points here, which I'm not aware at the moment, or which I can think of at the moment. So it's, well,
Do you peer-to-peer from client to client?
No, over that V4.js backend service.
Yeah. Maybe another possibility.
Yeah.
I noticed there's a WebSocket node in the client side, the front end side.
Yeah.
Is it possible to create something sort of secure now if you had an entirely separate back-end process not made in VVVV.JS that passed WebSocket to a front end VVVV.JS instance? Do you think that's something you could do on the web?
Yeah, sure, for sure. Yeah. There's all. I'm not sure if it's in. If it comes with V4, but there is a WebSocket server, for example, in V4, and it's perfectly safe to use the WebSocket client from V4.js to the client mode to talk to the backend that way. Yeah. I think that's the way how you. Yeah. Okay. So what was your? We have a couple of minutes, and I was surprised that Paul here told me that he recently used it in a production project, and and he did exactly what it's there for. Yeah. So what was your experience there?
It's very good because it's only a small client software which takes some own protocol and builds up some HTML side on the protocol and communicate to before with the WebSocket node which button is pressed. That's it. And before knows, okay, this button now I send you this new page, and that's it. And in this way, you can control. I don't know. And it works really good. And one day before the opening, the tablet was blocked, was great, and then it was very easy. I want to take a new one. really more easy than when some foreign device is still, which is a lot of more problem.
Was that on the internet or a local network?
What?
Was that on the internet or a local network?
A local network. But maybe you can say some words to the import of some Node.js packages. You said before you can make a dynamic JS plugin and make a reference to the
Yeah.
out of the box.
Let's see. So this is the source code. So you would do something like this, here, requirements, and then you just add the package name, like this. And from that point, you can require it in your node. So that's how it works actually. And then you can use this package just the usual way. Yeah. Should work. Yeah. Let me know. There's one last thing which just came into my mind when you should use V4.js. Yeah, so there are cases where firewalls or antivirus scanners prevent WebSockets. And always make sure that your infrastructure suits this, because I did a project and I went to the client and it was like the worst presentation I ever had, because the thing was so broken that literally nothing worked, okay? And people were looking at me like I'm crazy, why do I come with this? And it worked at home thing in this agency, and so well, always make sure to have to check the infrastructure if it works. Yeah. Okay, just in time.